This episode contains discussion of child abuse, child sexual abuse, grooming, suicide, and domestic violence and abuse. Listener discretion is advised.
On July 20th, 2020, Gallatin, Tennessee 911 dispatchers received a phone call from Angie Solomon. He told them that his 18-year-old son Grant was lying in a ditch at the bottom of a parking lot and that his Toyota Tacoma had backed over him and dragged him down the hill. When responders arrived, they found Grant alive, but only just. He was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. Officers ruled the death an accident and the case was closed. Grant's mother, Angie Solomon, knows something else happened in that parking lot that day. Something that was the culmination of years of sexual, physical, emotional, and mental abuse, and she's going to do everything she can to prove that Aaron murdered her son.
You guys, this is a rough stuff kind of case. Very rough. Mm-hmm. And we know you guys like to be warned ahead of time if there's going to be any child abuse. And again, I know we already mentioned it in the trigger warnings, but we're not going to go into detail about it, but it is awful and there's child sexual abuse involved. So just want you to know. But it's hard to listen to, but this is a case that is active and ongoing right now. And if you can get through it and then share the story or do something with it or sign the petition or write a letter or whatever you can do, it's very important.
Absolutely.
So just know that these episodes, these cases, stuff can be done. We can move the needle. So if you can get through it, we encourage you to.
Yes. And we have some people to thank before we get into the episode. We want to thank Alex for suggesting this case. And thank you to Madison for writing it up.
Thank you. All right. So Grant Rhodes Huffines Solomon was born on June 13th, 2002 to Angie and Aaron Solomon. Angie grew up in a rough household, but despite the odds against her, she worked hard and she achieved a doctorate in pharmacy. She bought her own home in Tennessee, and she was really excited when she ended up reconnecting with an old friend from high school named Aaron Solomon. Aaron was a sports anchor for WSMV Channel 4 News in Nashville when they started dating in 2001. I don't remember him from the news. I believe he was he was the sports anchor. I believe I don't know who he was, probably because I didn't watch sports. I don't,
Right, same.
Yeah, I don't remember him, but that's going to be a very important part of this case. And I don't know how, everybody watching this feels, but, your local news anchors are celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we went on Talk of the Town that day and we got to meet Leland Statham,
mm-hmm.
we were like, you're our weather guy. We've been watching you since we were little. It was so cool to see him
in person. You see him on the TV all the time. Yeah,
exactly. There is still something about somebody who's on TV, even if it's not national TV, that it feels like they're a celebrity.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. And I know one of the moms of the kids that my boys go to school with, I'm pretty good friends with her now, but we were driving one day, she works at a bank, and we were driving down the road one day, and I'm like, she's on a billboard, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, and she just filmed a commercial for her bank, it's local, but I'm like, you're famous, oh my gosh. So it's a big deal. 6 weeks into their relationship, Angie discovered that she was pregnant with Aaron's child, and on June 13th, 2002, she gave birth to their first son, Grant. And Angie said she was entirely prepared to have this baby on her own, right? They'd only been together 6 weeks when she found out she was pregnant.
Yeah, that's really throwing your relationship in the fast lane.
Yeah, she wasn't planning to marry him. She was planning to do what she needed to do as a single parent, right? But her parents pressured her into marrying Aaron so that Grant would have a father in his life. Okay. Can we just point out that I'm not saying that it's bad for a child to have two parents in their life, because of course not. It's not always good, though. Because when you've got a person like Aaron Solomon, as the father for your child, I'd say you're better off without that.
100%. Yeah.
Oh, also, can we also say that a lot of the information from this is coming from Angie? She's done interviews. We'll link to, she did like a 3-hour interview with a YouTuber named Gray Hughes. I watched almost all of that where she tells her story in her words. There's other places that we get information from too, but I know that Aaron Solomon is very litigious. He's got good lawyers. So,
and he's very well connected.
He's very well connected. And we live in this area. So, all of this is alleged, okay? This is alleged.
Yes, it's important to point that
and
out.
And opinion. So, we're not presenting things that cannot be confirmed as straight up fact. This is just the story as it's told, right? Anyway. Grant was a great friend to those he knew. He loved fiercely. He did really well in school, but his passion was baseball. And he started playing at just 4 years old. And by the time he hit high school, he was an incredibly talented pitcher. And he was being recruited by Division I colleges to play baseball. And I don't know what that is, but I think that's good.
Yeah. I'm very proud of him, but it means almost nothing to me hearing those words. Yeah. I'm sure that's like a big, big, big deal, but to this stupid idiot that doesn't know anything about sports ball in any way, I'm like,
yeah,
cool.
I think that the division things, I think the lower the number, the harder it is to get into and the more talented you have to be, you know? Like, I think a Division I school would be like, I know this is not baseball, but like your Alabamas of the football world and like stuff like that.
Well, I know like
Could be wrong.
Major League Baseball and then there's minor leagues and stuff like that. So it's like AAA, AA, right? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think so. I know. We don't know. But he was super talented. He was a very, very good baseball player. 4 years later, in October of 2006, Angie gave birth to the couple's second child, which was a girl named Gracie. And Grant and Gracie were super close. Super close. And they're 4 years apart, right? So like, and they're brother and sister. So sometimes like my husband and his sister are 4 years apart. And they weren't really close growing up. You know, there was enough of an age gap where they didn't really like a lot of the same stuff at the same time. You know, it was also like a boy and a girl and just different interests and things like that. They weren't super close. They're a lot closer now. But Grant and Gracie were always like two peas in a pod. They were super, super close. And Grant saw himself as the protector of his sister and his mother, especially when things went sour between his parents. So the marriage started to go downhill after Grant was born. And they got married, I believe Angie said 8 weeks into the relationship they got married. Because remember, she finds out 6 weeks in that she's pregnant. And it's only a couple weeks later, I think, that they got married. So they're married at 8 weeks and then 2 months into the relationship. And then Grant is born less than a year into the relationship, right at a year. And it's already gone downhill pretty bad, you know, at that point.
They don't know each other that well, right? It's not like they had this super established relationship. And then they've got this huge blessing, yet can be a stressor on a relationship, bringing a kid into it. So.
And for somebody who has anger issues and control issues and all of that, having a child can definitely, like you said, it can be a stressor, but it can bring out a lot of those problems and behaviors, I would say. And it reminds me a little bit of The Waitress when she gets pregnant, yes. And Earl is like, don't you go loving that baby more than you love me. Like, he kind of got he was already really controlling of her before she got pregnant, but she got pregnant and it kind of became one of those like, well, as long as you're not going to love the baby more than you love me, then, you know, like, I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm just saying it reminds me of that a little bit.
I think that's bad.
It's not good. It is not good. Angie says that Aaron became aggressive. He started having violent outbursts during this time. He was manipulative and lied to get what he wanted. In 2008, Angie found out that Aaron had cheated on her with multiple women. She also believed that he was grooming several high school age girls and hiring sex workers. In 2011, Aaron told Angie that he'd quit his job at the news station, but there were rumors that he'd been fired after inappropriate content was found on his cell phone and computer. And then in 2014, Aaron began working as a financial advisor for Merrill Lynch. Do you not have to, have experience in that to work for Merrill Lynch?
I don't even know. I mean, what we saw, and I'm not drawing a comparison personality-wise, but Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. I know, because I think if I had a boatload of money and I came to somebody and I was like, hello, Merrill Lynch, tell me what to do with my money. And they're like, here's this guy. Last year, he was a news anchor. Now he's your financial advisor.
Right.
I don't know. I would think.
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot of money, but I have some money, so maybe I'm qualified. I don't know.
Exactly. What is the qualification? To have some money? To have heard of money?
To have
before?
touched money in some capacity? Yeah.
I mean, and obviously, everybody's got to start somewhere or whatever, but I just, Merrill Lynch is that seems like it would be tough to just get a job there like that.
One would think. I don't know.
Things continued to get worse in the Solomon household. Angie tried to get counseling, but she said that Aaron would not give her any privacy. He wouldn't leave her alone for an extended period of time. So at first, it was like he wanted to go with her to therapy, but he would she said he would sit outside the room. He wanted to drive her there and back. He didn't want her going by herself. Eventually, he just started joining the sessions. She wasn't even alone in therapy, in the room. He was in there with her.
And that's very early from waitress. He drove her everywhere.
Exactly. Yep. She ended up being diagnosed with PTSD, and they said that was likely from the significant abuse that she'd experienced as a child. And remember, her parents are a big part of this situation too. So these are her abusers from her childhood that are playing a very, very big part in a lot of the stuff that we're going to see. And they also said PTSD from the abuse that she was currently experiencing in her marriage.
Mm-hmm.
She says that Aaron was diagnosed with narcissism and sex addiction.
I can see narcissism for sure.
Yeah. Uh-huh. After Gracie was born, Aaron's anger towards Angie and Grant intensified. The outbursts and abuse in the Solomon household became more and more frequent. Grant, Gracie, and Angie were terrified, and whenever Angie thought about talking to the police, she said that Aaron threatened her that he would take the kids, she'd never see them again. And the only thing that she could think to do was to continue to document things with her therapist, and she did everything she could to protect her children. Unfortunately, Aaron's influence and power proved to be too much for Angie, so Aaron ended up filing for divorce, and he won full custody of the children. Grant and Gracie's worst nightmare had come true, and it would not be ending anytime soon.
On Monday, July 20th, 2020, 18-year-old Grant, who was living with a friend, drove an hour to the Ward Performance Institute in Gallatin, Tennessee. WPI was a baseball training facility, and Grant had a private training session. His father had insisted on going to the session, and he was going to meet him there, which I am sure, I don't know, allegedly, whatever. I would feel like Grant was like, I don't want him to be there. But
right.
Aaron insisted. So it was going to be the first time that Grant had been alone with his father in 2 years. At 8:44 a.m., Aaron called 911 and told them that Grant's truck had rolled over him, dragged him, and pinned him down in a ditch. During the 911 call, Aaron said that there were 3 men there with him that were down in the ditch with Grant, and he said that the men told him that blood was coming out of Grant's mouth and that he might aspirate or choke on the blood. The 911 dispatcher gave directions and tried to get more information from Aaron, and after she felt like she'd got enough information, she suggested that someone go down into the ditch to be with Grant to talk to him. And she says that when Grant wakes up, he might be scared, and Aaron yells out, "Somebody talk to him." Why wouldn't that be him?
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? Because, if you're watching on YouTube, Jen, our editor, is amazing. I'm sure she's already got a picture up of the scene. But WPI is at the top of a hill. The parking lot slopes downward.
Uh-huh.
And there's a ditch and a sidewalk off the street. This is where the truck ended up. It's like 60 feet down.
And the ditch...
He's standing...
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. The ditch.
Well, I was just going to say the ditch, it's got a ton of very big rocks.
Very big rocks. Not boulders, but big rocks. These are not like little like gravel driveway rocks. These are big rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron is standing at the top of the hill next to the building. He's 60 feet away from where his son is pinned under a vehicle while he's on the phone with 911. He never walks down there. He tells these 3 mystery guys, somebody talk to him.
Somebody check on him.
Somebody do something. Somebody check on him. He never walks to the bottom of that hill to check on his son.
No.
To say any words to him, to see if he's breathing.
Right. Well, and we'll get into it, I'm sure, but I just wanted to point out something that we both have heard about from other podcasts who have covered it and things like that. But with it's Aaron and then 3 other men, excuse me. So it's 4 total. They couldn't have tried to get the truck off of him in some way. Like, why didn't they try anything?
Right. Mm-hmm. I know, because you hear stories of if a small child is pinned under a vehicle or whatever, like moms, because of adrenaline, will lift that motherfucker off of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 men couldn't, together lift the back of it up.
At least
or the front of it,
try.
Whatever.
You know what I mean? Like, there was no gumption or no I don't know. It just didn't seem pressing. Like, Aaron was like, well, I don't know. And we're going to listen to the 911 call. So, okay. Police arrived, and Aaron told them that he had been sitting in the driver's seat of his own truck. He was answering a work email on his phone. He saw Grant get out of the driver's seat of his white Toyota Tacoma, and then he walked to the back of the truck to get his baseball gear out. And then let's listen to the 911 call.
Please hurry.
You said 57?
Please hurry. My son's truck backed over him, and it's rolled over him and dragged him into the ditch, and it's on top of him. He's trapped under the truck, and I
Okay, what's your name?
oh my God. My name is Aaron Solomon. He's 18. He just turned 18 a couple weeks, about a month ago. It's my son. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is not good.
So, I mean, you can definitely hear. And again, we have talked about it so many times, like till we're blue in the face, about how grief is expressed in different ways. Shock, fear, all the things, you can express them in many different ways. But there just doesn't seem, in my opinion, that he is that concerned. I don't know what the right word is. Like, you would think that he would be a little bit more upset sounding. He would be right there checking on him. He would, it doesn't sound like that.
Or even like run inside and say, does anybody have a jack with them?
Oh, sure.
If I can't lift it up, let's get a jack and let's get it under there and pull him out from under this truck. He asked no questions. He asked for help from nobody except for these 3 mystery men that he's yelling to.
Yeah, exactly. So Aaron said he heard a loud crash, then he looked to see Grant's truck back over him and down the hill into the grass ditch below the parking lot. First responders arrived to find Grant laying underneath his truck between 2 of the tires. None of the tires' weight was on Grant.
Between 2 of the tires. So he's essentially just laying underneath a truck.
Well, and
his weight is not on him.
But in the 911 call, he said he's pinned underneath the truck, which is just not true.
It sounds like he could have grabbed his legs from under and just pulled him out. Easily. Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, Aaron is on the phone. He's like, don't move him, don't move him. And the dispatcher says the same thing, like, don't move him. But still, it's like, I just don't understand why you just wouldn't check. I just don't. That's something that I will never, ever understand. The only blood was coming from the back of his head, and he was unresponsive and barely breathing. Firefighters and EMS personnel did everything they could for Grant as they lifted and braced the truck to pull him out from underneath. They loaded him into an ambulance and began CPR en route. They reached the hospital, and shortly before 9:30 a.m., Grant Solomon was pronounced dead, and he had just turned 18 less than a month before this.
So before Angie was able to get to the hospital, Aaron declined an autopsy and organ donation, and Angie said that when she finally got to the hospital, Aaron was sitting in a chair, absolutely no emotion on his face. He looked at her and said, quote, "We're going to be a family now." That sounds like a threat.
That sounds like a threat. And we need to give you a little more information now, okay? So the Solomons by this point had not been a family for a very long time. Before Angie and Aaron divorced, before he took both children out of the home without telling Angie, Gracie had told her mother that her dad had been hurting her. So in January of 2013, Gracie was 5 years old and Grant was 11. I'm sorry, I said they were 4 years, they're 6 years apart, my bad.
That's even more impressive that they were as close as they were.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know why I said 4, but sorry.
Nobody expects you to be smart.
Okay, thank you. Good. As long as somebody's expecting it, that's better. Aaron had completely forbade anybody but him to bathe this little girl.
That's so weird.
Sounds like the Menendez situation. He was the only one that was ever allowed to give her a bath. Ever. And so Angie started to notice that Gracie started getting really, really upset when it was bath time. She would beg them, "Please don't make me take a bath. Please don't make me take a bath. I don't need to have a bath." And then that day in January, it all came together. Gracie told Angie that Aaron was touching her and that he would put soap in her private parts, and it really hurt. She gave more details to her mother about what was happening during bath time. And Angie said she confronted Aaron about the abuse. She asked him, "Is it true?" And he said it was. But he told her the same thing that he always did. "If you tell anybody, I'm going to take the children away and you are never going to see them again." Angie believed that this was happening, but she also believed Aaron, his threat. And she, at this time, felt like, I need to be here to protect them. I've got to do what I can to stay close. Kind of like, keep your enemies closer sort of a situation. Angie continued to see her therapist, making notes and plenty of documentation about what was going on in the household. She and her therapist were working to figure out a plan to get her and the children safely away from Aaron. It didn't seem like they had anywhere to go. And Gracie later confirmed what her mother said. Angie's parents knew about the abuse, but they continued to support Aaron. And supposedly his parents did too. So you think about, he's a local news anchor. He's really well connected. And he's got this much power and influence in this area that people just believe him because.
Yeah.
And don't believe anything anybody else tells them about him. Imagine how much power you would have if you were somebody on a national stage. It just, people will go to a lot of lengths for people that they perceive to be in power in any way, shape, or form. I don't know.
Definitely, yeah.
In May of 2013, an incident happened at the Solomon household that set things further down the path that would eventually lead to Grant's death. So, at this time, Angie, Grant, and Gracie all slept together in the master bedroom, and they would lock themselves in there. Like, Aaron would have these, violent outbursts. Angie said they would lock themselves in there, but they slept together in that room every night. Like, they all were together. On May 9th, they had locked themselves in the bedroom. Angie said Aaron was pretty aggressive that night, but he coaxed Angie out of the room and into the bathroom with him. He ended up striking her on the side of the head, and then he started strangling her with the power cord from the hairdryer. Grant, who was 11 at the time, walked in. He was able to intervene, and he stopped his father from killing his mother. And Angie said in the interview that I saw, she said, there were plenty of times that he had abused her in the past, but she said the air was different this night. The look in his eyes was different this night. Like, she said, when she walked out to talk to him, the person that she saw sitting there was not the person that she knew. There was like something that had changed. She knew it was going to be bad, like really bad.
So scary.
And then, Grant had to step in. He's only 11, Like the other incidents, Angie did not report this to the police, still in fear for her life and her children's lives. However, Aaron did call 911 that night, and he called Angie's parents, and they came over to the house. And they supported Aaron calling law enforcement. And they told law enforcement that Angie was suicidal and she'd tried to hang herself with the blow dryer cord. So they take her to the hospital. And she said that she didn't understand what was really happening until she got to the doctor, or like she started talking to the doctor, and she found out that Aaron had told them that she was attempting suicide. And she was like, hang on. That's not what happened. And she was like, I wasn't going to tell anybody what happened, but he was trying to make it look like that I was attempting suicide. And so she told the doctor, this is what's going on. This is what happened this night. And in the physician's medical chart from this visit with Angie, he did not believe that she was at risk of harming herself or anyone else. And in the chart, there's a part of the note that says, quote, the note indicated that the staff admitted her out of caution despite the confusing presentation of abuse versus suicide attempt. The note suggested that Dr. Solomon was likely in an abusive relationship with her husband. When referencing the information he received from Angie's therapist, the doctor wrote, quote, the plan was to move Dr. Solomon out of the house safely and obtain a divorce. The chart indicated that Dr. Solomon did not appear to have signs of depression, and she was not voicing suicidal ideation. So we've got records from the therapist. We have records from the doctor saying, I don't believe that this was a suicide attempt. And we've got records from the therapist confirming that there's abuse in the household. Or at least that's what
Angie
is being presented
saying
to the therapist.
Right.
But Aaron is really holding strong on this is what has happened.
Well, and he's got people to back him up. They don't know.
Exactly.
But they're backing him.
In the hospital discharge summary, it was noted that, quote, the patient was telling the truth about the situation and that she was in a risky situation with her husband, who appeared to possibly be volatile and violent, although this was uncertain. The patient's parents also appeared to be unreliable sources of information.
How sad for Angie. That is so sad.
Can you imagine like how alone you would feel? Like, it's already very isolating to experience abuse like that, but for your parents to take the side of the person that is hurting you and your children,
I cannot
you
even
have
imagine.
nobody.
And
because where can she go? You know, like,
I don't understand it either. Like, why? Why did they take it? Why?
I don't know. And it goes back to these people were very abusive to her entire life, you know? So it's just, she just didn't have anybody.
So
and that's
sad.
Really sad.
And I mean, not to mention the fact that her parents really pushed for them to get married in the first place, even though they had known each other. Well, they knew each other for a long time, but they had been dating for the 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whenever it happened.
Right.
Like,
yeah. And you can know somebody a long ass time and not know everything about them.
well, absolutely true. Yes.
You know, like, of course, if there are people in your life that are abusive to their spouses or significant others, like, we're not going to see that because we're not behind closed doors with them.
Right.
They're able to control that anger and aggression when other people are around, which is very interesting because a lot of times they say, well, I just can't help it. You know, I just get so angry and I blow up. Well, you're able to temper that when other people are around.
Yeah. That kind of feels like you can control it, though.
A little bit. Kind of feels that way. Yeah. The doctor determined that Angie had never expressed thoughts of hurting herself, and she had never attempted to do so. So they released her from the hospital. Angie left the hospital on May 11th. She went home to the house that she still shared with Aaron, and when she got home, she expected everybody would be there, but the house was empty. Aaron, Grant, and Gracie were gone.
Oh my gosh. So Angie had no idea where her children were. She called Aaron, she called her parents, she called his parents over and over and over again, but there was no response. She hoped that because May 12th was Mother's Day, Aaron would bring the kids home, but he did not. Instead, he called 911 to report that Angie was suicidal. Again, officers arrived on scene and, after talking to Angie, determined that she was no threat to herself or to others. Happy Mother's Day to you.
I know. And she said, she's like, I'm in the house. There's like a knock on the door, police, whatever. She opens the door and they're like, you know, we're here to check on you because suicidal ideation or whatever. And she said, she literally goes, again? Like, I just got home from this. Like, are you serious? So she went and got some of the paperwork from the hospital where the doctor had written not suicidal. And they were like, okay, well, happy Mother's Day, ma'am. Like,
At the recommendation of the doctor who she'd seen in the emergency room on her visit, Angie had filed for a restraining order against Aaron. And this seemed like it was the one time that Angie wanted to see Aaron. She wanted to know where her kids were. And she called the police to report that Aaron had left the home with her kids and that she still had no idea where they were. Reportedly, the officers didn't seem to be too concerned. On the 18th of May, Angie went to a friend who was a lawyer, hoping to find out what she had, like what rights she had at this point, what she can do about all of this. So after digging, they found out some shocking news. While she'd been in the hospital, Aaron had filed for divorce, as well as for an order of protection for him and the kids from her, and he was granted full custody.
Like, she filed for that order of protection, and it was granted, but she tried to include the children in it, and the judge removed them from it. It was just for her. They wouldn't allow that. But they allowed him to file for an order of protection and include the children. And he, at this point, he's doing everything that he can to make her appear as an unfit mother. That's his goal, according to Angie.
He's, if that's what he was trying to do, which it all checks to me, he's doing a pretty damn good job.
Exactly. And you know, Angie said he had been telling me for years, I'm going to take the kids away from you. I'm going to make it so that you never see those children again. And then at this point, he makes good on that promise.
Yeah, exactly. Living with Aaron was a nightmare for Gracie and Grant. They were constantly terrified. Aaron regulated everything they did, what they ate, when they went to the bathroom, who they hung out with, literally everything. And the kids told their friends and Angie that they were on a strict diet. Grant's friends saw a noticeable change in him. He had lost 25 pounds within the first year of living with his father. And Gracie had huge dark bags underneath both eyes.
Very sad. She's a little girl. And I mean, like, huge dark bags. That's not normal. No. And he should not be losing 25 pounds. He's a growing boy. Like,
I'm sure he did not have it to lose in the first place, but
that's what makes me really, the system, the people in place that are supposed to be mandatory reporters, doctors, judges, teachers, like, all of these people could not have failed these children any more if they had even tried harder. You know what I mean?
Well, and we're going to get into some real bullshit.
You've got a teenage boy who's lost 25 pounds. And like you said, he was not on a weight loss plan for any reason. He's an athlete who's in peak physical shape, I would think. He doesn't need to lose 25 pounds. He's not a wrestler who's cutting weight.
No.
Or whatever.
Right.
He's losing 25 pounds because he was, I think they said that he was only allowed to eat meat and vegetables. He was not allowed anything else.
Carbs or anything like that.
Yeah. He had a very strict diet that he was placed on. Somebody should have noticed that. Did they not go to the doctor at any time during that year? Like, don't you have to have physicals to play sports and stuff like that? Nobody noticed the significant weight loss and said, hey, this isn't right.
Right. I don't know.
You know?
Yeah, I have no idea. But, I mean, like you said, it's just, they've been failed for sure. On May 26th, 2013, Aaron returned home to the home with both kids and Angie's parents. And Angie said that Aaron essentially told her that if she, quote unquote, behaved, he and the kids would stay. And just a day later, Aaron took Angie and Grant to Dunkin' Donuts, telling them that they were just grabbing some donuts for their mom. When they realized that Aaron was taking them back to his house, Grant tried to jump out of the moving car, and Aaron yanked him back by the wrist.
And he thought his wrist was broken.
I mean, you gotta yank him hard. Like, I would imagine that the word yank infers that it's a hard, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly. That's just... These poor kids.
And Grant trying to do anything that he can to get out of that situation. He's like, I will literally jump out of a moving car. On June 21st, Angie and Aaron appeared before a judge about their divorce hearing. Both Angie's father and sister made statements in Aaron's favor. Medical experts testified in Angie's defense, insisting that Angie was not suicidal. She was a victim of domestic violence. Despite seemingly no evidence to indicate that Angie was an unfit mother, Judge Philip E. Smith ruled in favor of Aaron, leaving him with full custody of Gracie and Grant. All of the judges in this case I hate them. Judge Smith also ordered a full mental health exam before she was allowed to have any contact with her kids. The doctor returned with a report stating that he agreed with the other doctors that had evaluated Angie that she was a great mother, and Judge Smith later reportedly dismissed this report.
Yeah, because this, like, she's met with other people that are doctors of her choosing. This was a doctor of their choosing, the judge and Aaron and whatever. And this doctor agreed. She's not an unfit mother. She's a great mother. She's being abused. And they're like, well, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just forget that.
What did Aaron have that was so, I don't get it. Is it money? Is it?
Right.
I don't know.
What is it that or is it just that, like, good old boys, like, oh, I know him through this and that and whatever, and I'm going to do what I can to protect that. It just doesn't make any sense.
And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to talk about. And to know that it happened, right? Like, just not even just talking about it. But it was October of 2013, and Angie hadn't seen her kids since June 21st. Gracie later said that her father told them that their mother was dead, and they believed him. Finally, in February of 2014, Aaron allows Angie to see the kids. Angie could see how scared her children were and how much they'd physically changed since living with their father. The weight loss, the bags under Gracie's eyes, but unfortunately there was nothing that she could do.
And Angie said at that time she had been, talking to people that she knew, and they said, listen, you need to move really close to Aaron, and he will use you as a babysitter. If you move close by to him, he will begin to use you as a babysitter. And she was like, and he did. That's what ended up happening. And she said that every time the kids would come to her house, again, they had to behave. They had to play the game, right? So they all had to talk about this and say, okay, when you go back to him, you can't cry and ask to stay. You just got to go and act like you want to go. She started baking cookies and sending them home for Aaron. Like, just doing whatever she could. Yeah. And then they said, you keep doing that, and eventually he's going to let them stay the night with you. And he did. Eventually he started using her for overnights and things like that. And the kids would end up spending weeks at her house sometimes because he's, doing whatever he's doing. But on paper, he had custody. So during this time, even though he's allowing them to go spend the night with her and whatever, there was like one time where he let them stay with her, agreed that they could stay another few nights or whatever, and then he called the police and said that she'd kidnapped them.
See, and anything to make her look terrible.
She says, but because she said they always communicated via text message, which was Aaron's rule, which is actually very beneficial for Angie, right? Because she has all these screenshots. But she said, I've got the text right here that shows. He said they could stay here. Like, this is not me kidnapping them. And they said, yeah, but you don't have a custody order that says that. You're in violation of the custody order, and that's what we're here to enforce.
That is so annoying.
In November of 2014, Aaron was only letting Angie see the children during their sporting events. On the 18th, while sitting in a basketball game, 8-year-old Gracie told her mom that her father was still sexually abusing her. She detailed how he'd bathe her. I mean, she's 8 years old. She doesn't need to be bathed every time, right? Like,
I wouldn't think so, no.
My 7-year-old, he will tell me, hey, Mom, I'm going to go ahead and take my shower. And he does it all by himself. Like, he doesn't need super help. He might stay in there way too long playing with toys and use all the hot water, but he can do it by himself.
Yeah.
Gracie says he's still putting soap in her private parts. It really hurts. It stings. All these things. So Angie did the only thing that she could think of. Knowing that Aaron would deny Gracie's accusation, she recorded parts of her conversation with Gracie on her phone to add to the documentation that she was keeping about Aaron. And Aaron, of course, did not allow the children to see their mother for Christmas, which devastated them. In March of 2015, Gracie managed to FaceTime her mother without Aaron knowing, and she showed her bruises that she had on her inner thighs. And you can see these pictures. Angie took screenshots of this FaceTime. You can see the pictures of Gracie's thighs, and they're large bruises, and they're significant bruises. I mean, you can see it. And she said, but I don't know where they came from. I have all these bruises on my legs, but I don't know where they came from. She also told her mom that there were times at home where she'd get really sleepy for no reason, just super, super sleepy. She'd fall asleep. She'd wake up some period of time later in her father's bed. But she would have no idea what happened in between. But she would have pain in places. Erin ended up telling Gracie that the bruises on her thighs were from a bathing suit that gave her a rash.
Now, okay.
Yes, let's talk about where a bathing suit touches your skin.
And also that it's absurd. Like that, there's absolutely no way that could even, it's a lie, obviously, but there's no way that could even be true. But this is in March. And I'm not saying the only time the bruises appeared there or were present was in March, but who's going swimming in March? Nobody.
Not in Tennessee. Yeah, not in Tennessee. Even if you have a pool at your house, even if it's heated, there's snow on the ground sometimes in March.
Yeah.
Or it's cold enough it could snow.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're not swimming in March. Maybe a hot tub. And of course it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of times, kids will accept, what is. I mean, because they're learning. So they're learning things from their parents and they're like, hey, where did this come from? And you're like, oh, probably your bathing suit. Okay.
Yeah.
Like they don't know any better.
But
sometimes.
It's just so scary too that she was waking up in her dad's bed, which is somewhere that she, as far as I can tell, I don't know for a fact, but it seems like a place that she does not feel safe.
No.
And mysteriously just getting sleepy and then just waking up somewhere else. That's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Before this, Erin had an aunt that had passed away, and he inherited a trust from her. So he started getting disbursements of that it was like over $100,000 a month for these payments during the time that it paid out. However, he went ahead and filed a report in April of 2015 against Angie for her not paying child support. Now, one thing that I do know that we've learned through, our parents and everything, I don't know if child support is the same way, but when alimony used to be a big thing, it's like less frequent now, I guess. Alimony was never based on whether or not the party who received it needed it. It was based on whether the party that was paying it could pay it or not.
Could pay it, yeah.
It's their ability, not their need. That doesn't matter. I'm assuming child support is the same way. He's got custody. He doesn't need the money, but if she's working, then she can pay it. So I think that's the way the law is. But of course obviously he's just being vindictive, right?
Yeah.
Like he knows he has plenty of money. He doesn't need that from her, but this is a way he can go after her. She was put in jail for the weekend over this. It just felt like nobody was listening. They tell everybody this is what's going on and nobody listened. Throughout the next 3 years, Angie and the kids did everything they could to keep Erin happy, hoping that they would not be the target of Erin's next violent outburst.
Angie began telling law enforcement about the abuse that her and her kids were suffering. She told several people at the school, or at the kids' private Christian school, Grace Christian Academy, and their associated church, Grace Chapel, that she believed Erin was messaging young girls and talking to them inappropriately. Unfortunately, it didn't seem as though anybody was going to do anything further about it. No. Like, oh, okay, well, anyway, let's talk about something else. Don't bring that up. There are multiple emails and communications showing that Angie reached out to law enforcement. There is a podcast. What is it called?
I forget what the podcast is called, but the episode, it's on YouTube too, because they've got a lot of images and things like that. The episode is called Southern Injustice about this case, but it's 2 retired law enforcement people.
Officers, yes.
Officers, yeah, that we can link that too. They've got some really good information on the accident kind of reconstruction and stuff like that.
Well,
but they are clear. They're obviously from Boston. Yeah,
Boston.
Say law enforcement.
Yes, and something else I can't remember.
Fun accent.
I know. Oh, I saw it. Like that kind of stuff. Yeah. As soon as I heard the first mention of that, I was like, oh yeah. Like, this is the accent. There are multiple emails and communications showing that Angie reached out to law enforcement, church, and school officials about her concerns for Aaron's behavior and the safety of herself and the children. And there's even evidence showing that Grant and Gracie tried to tell people at school what was happening. There's even a recording of 2 female school officials from Grace Christian Academy discussing Gracie's alleged allegations with one another. They both voiced their concern that Gracie wasn't thinking about the future, just the present. They were concerned with how many people she was telling and how they could best, quote, contain the situation.
And they were telling her too, according to Gracie, that they were saying that they're trying to save her reputation, that you keep talking about this and that doesn't look good for you.
Mm-mm.
And it's going to make your reputation kind of soured. And you just need to not talk about it anymore. Just don't talk about it. It makes you look bad to boys. It makes you look bad to
your peers,
everybody around
right?
you. Yeah.
I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that is the approach that they took with this. But in July of 2018, Grant and Gracie had forensics interviews done by a social worker from the Davis House Child Advocacy Center and Tamika Sanders, a detective with the Williamson County Sheriff's Office. And Sanders opened an investigation when she realized that Gracie was being sexually abused. After the interviews, Sanders contacted the Department of Children's Services, so DCS, who told her not to investigate the situation any further, and Sanders listened to DCS. Why?
Why are we not asking any questions? Why should I not investigate this when there's evidence of sexual abuse of a child?
Yeah, sexual abuse. Exactly.
Like, okay, fine. You told me to stop. I'll stop.
I have no idea. I literally do not have any idea.
No. It's awful.
In August of 2018, Grant and Gracie ran away from Aaron, but he quickly called the police, and once officers found them, he requested that the police bring them back home in order to scare them. On the weekend of August 17th and 18th, Grant had a baseball tournament out of state in North Carolina. Aaron drove Gracie, now 11, and Grant, who was 16, to North Carolina. While Grant stayed with his team, Gracie and Aaron had to drive back to Tennessee because Angie had filed for emergency custody citing neglect and the abuse of the children. Gracie made a video testimony in which she told them how, on the night prior, on the way back from North Carolina, her father booked them a hotel room with one bed. She explained in detail to the court how her father had raped her that night, and the judge refused to watch the video. Didn't want to watch it, refused, straight up refused. And since Grant was still at his tournament, he wrote a letter to be read in court describing the abuse he and his sister suffered at the hands of his father. He said that Aaron restricted his food and humiliated him, constantly calling him fat. Grant wrote how Aaron would say terrible things about their mother, constantly trying to turn them against her. And Grant said that they were terrified every minute they had to spend with their father, and all they wanted to do was be back with their mom. And despite the disgusting amount of evidence detailing Aaron's abuse and behavior, the judge dismissed the motion, saying that Angie had filed it without merit. She also
listen to this.
She also ruled that Angie was unable to file any further civil lawsuits against Aaron for 6 years.
Okay, I don't know every single law in the state of Tennessee, but this includes any motions. Like the judge ruled Angie can't file anything, which means she can't file any petitions to get the kids back. She can't file anything saying he's, being abusive and blah, 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 all this stuff. She can't file any of that for 6 years. And in her interview with Gray Hughes, he's like, can you even do that? Can you
bar someone
do that to
from
somebody? Yeah. And she's like, it's not constitutional, I would think. So again, I don't know every single law in the state of Tennessee, but I don't know that that's a thing. I've never heard of that happening before.
I haven't either, honestly. But it's just so outrageous to me that Aaron can do whatever the he wants to do. He can accuse her of doing all kinds of stuff. He can take her to court for whatever he wants to. Everybody is like, man, yep, I feel sorry for that guy. He's had a really rough time with his crazy bitch of a wife.
Exactly.
With absolutely no evidence to support it. She's
no
got
evidence to support it.
She's got all the evidence and everybody's like, oh my God, this one. She's always making shit up about him.
Mm-hmm. She's so crazy. Gosh.
And this is I'm speculating. I don't know if that's actually what happened or what people are thinking, but that's how it feels to me. And I'm like,
mm-hmm. And it feels very 1930s 30s where you could like have your wife committed for making you a bad meal, or if she was just
Give
she
her
was
shock
upset about
treatment
something
because, yeah.
because now she's hysterical, and
Yeah.
because there's no, again, like you said, there's no evidence of this. And in fact, physicians, psychologists, mental health professionals, everybody who has interviewed her, the court ordered a mental health evaluation on her.
Mm-hmm.
And it found that she's not suicidal, that she's not an unfit mother. He tried to go down the road of she's, got a drug addiction and that makes her an unfit mother. Like, he went through all these avenues and every single one of those was proven by the professionals that the court uses to determine these things that they were not true. But Erin just says she tried to kill herself.
Mm-hmm. And they believe him.
And I need full custody.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I will never understand it.
No.
And Gracie was absolutely petrified of her father, but she had to drive back with him to North Carolina to pick up Grant.
You guys, this is going to be a two-parter. I suspected it. We didn't initially plan it as a two-parter, but like this is such an involved case because we have so many things to go through with just the accident itself. So this is the end of part 1.
Yes.
Because we have to shut up now. So if you want part 2, you want to hear all the inconsistencies, you want to know all the things, if you're a patron, you've already got it waiting for you. It's locked and loaded, ready to go. If you're not a patron, ain't no thing. You'll just get it next week.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Either way, you're going to get part 2.
Yes.
Just next week with ads, right now without ads.
Yeah, exactly. So, but thank you guys for hanging out with us. We love you, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.